Before God said, "Let there be light," what existed? Was time already running? Or had time not even begun yet? This question, so simple at first glance, actually dismantles all logic we know. Because if you stop and think about it, how is it possible to exist before if time itself did not yet exist? This is not just a theological curiosity, it is a puzzle that has puzzled scientists, philosophers, and Bible scholars for millennia. And perhaps you have never thought of it this way, but understanding what existed before the light can reveal much more than we imagine about the purpose of creation, and even about our place in this universe. Stay with me until the end, because what you are about to discover now may change the way you see reality. Literally, because when we dive into this blind spot of creation, we begin to realize that time, this clock that controls our days, our pains, our expectations, is not something eternal. It is a creation. And more than that, perhaps it is a code, a veil, a limit imposed between us and eternity. The Bible begins with, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." But the beginning of what? The beginning of space? The beginning of matter? Or the beginning of time? If God is eternal, he is not bound by time. He does not age. He does not wait. He is not late. So when he creates the beginning, is he actually marking the beginning of a countdown? Is time a line drawn between the beginning and the end of something, greater that we cannot yet fully understand? Now imagine a universe still empty, without light, without form, without sound, only the Spirit of God hovering over the deep waters of nothingness, absolute silence, a darkness that predates even the idea of darkness. It is in this scenario that the first act of creation takes place, the divine speech. Let there be light. But if there was no sun, no stars, what light was that? A visible light? Or a spiritual manifestation? A breaking of the darkness? Or the beginning of a new cycle of existence that until then had been hidden? These questions go far beyond biblical curiosity. They touch the root of our very existence. Because if time had a beginning, then it also has an end. And if there was a moment when everything was silent, on pause, waiting for God's command, could it be that today, right now, you are also living in that before there is light? Have you ever been through this? Those dark periods where nothing seems to happen, where everything is suspended, but at the same time something deep down tells you that a change is about to happen. Maybe the origin of time is not just a distant mystery back in Genesis. Maybe it is echoing within you every day, every time you wait, every time you feel like the right moment has not yet arrived. And that is why we need to look at this principle more deeply, because what was hidden before the light may be the key to understanding much of what is still hidden today. And in the next step, we will decipher exactly this. What did the Bible really mean when it mentioned this abyss before creation? What forces were there? And why did God choose to start with the light? Because what was hidden before the light may be the key to understanding much of what is still hidden today. And perhaps as you look within, you will realize that your personal abyss, that time when nothing seems to move, where all is silence and darkness, is not the end, but the prelude. The pause before the word, the exact moment when God is about to declare something new about your life. And this realization changes everything. It changes the way you hope, the way you trust, the way you walk, even without seeing. If this topic resonates with you, if this reflection has touched you in some way, leave a comment below with what has touched you the most so far. I would really like to know how this message reached you, because sometimes a simple shared phrase can be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Your experience, your point of view, your doubts, all of this builds this space for exchange that we are creating together. And yes, each comment has real power. It helps spread this conversation far beyond what we can imagine. And if you feel that this type of content needs to continue to exist, if you feel that it makes you think differently, feel differently, click the like button. Not out of formality, but because this simple gesture shows YouTube that this video has value. That it is not just another one, but a point of light amidst so many distractions. Oh, and of course, if you've made it this far, it's because something inside you wants more. You want to continue unraveling these mysteries. You want to deepen your faith and understand the invisible with clarity. So take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel right now. This ensures that you're always close by and helps me to continue bringing you content that often doesn't have space elsewhere, but that here finds echo, meaning, and purpose. Now take a deep breath, and because what comes next may surprise you even more, let's continue. In the beginning, these words seem simple, but they carry the weight of something that the human mind still struggles to comprehend. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, but then the Bible reveals a scene that has almost been forgotten. Now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and so the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Before light, before any definition of day or night, there was only emptiness, a formless, timeless space where everything was suspended in absolute silence, a kind of eternal pause. And the most impressive thing, there were no clocks, no cycles, no counting. That moment was not measured in seconds, because time had not yet begun. We live surrounded by the notion of time. We wake up, we run, we make appointments, we grow old. But when we look at this zero instant, we realize that time as we know it is something that was created later. This changes our entire perspective. The Spirit of God hovered, but hovered over what exactly? The language used in Genesis tells us of an abyss, of deep waters and darkness. There is no record of angels, of solid ground, of stars, only a void and a presence. And this presence already carries within itself all the power of creation, as if the universe were contained within a single breath. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this pause in time, this interval before the light, seems more like a sacred wait than chaos. It is not an absence, it is a preparation, as if God were standing before an infinite canvas, about to paint the first brushstroke. And here comes something that few realize. When the Spirit hovers, He is not standing still. He is moving invisibly, preparing the ground for something great. This moment carries the essence of all true transformation. Before any visible manifestation, there is always a hidden movement. What if this pattern still repeats itself today? How many times have you felt in darkness, without form, in total silence, and yet something inside was already being gestated? Perhaps the absence of signs is not a lack of divine action, but a necessary stage in the process. Waiting is not punishment, it is invisible construction. And this hidden truth about the beginning shows us that the impact of any creation begins in the invisible, in what no one sees, in what cannot yet be measured. This scenario described in Genesis 1:2 is more than a cosmic account. It is a reflection of our own journey. We all go through phases of abyss, of emptiness, of not knowing what is to come. But if the Spirit of God was there, hovering over that which made no sense, why wouldn't He be now, in the silence of your doubts, preparing the next "Let there be light"? Comment below. This moment of waiting that you experienced or are experiencing, did it seem chaotic to you, or was there something sacred behind it? If all this happened before the existence of time, then we must accept something that completely defies logic. God is not inside time, He created it. And that changes everything. Because while we live counting minutes, days, decades, God acts in another dimension. He inhabits eternity. As Isaiah 57:15 says, "For thus says the one who is high and lofty, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy, I dwell in the high and holy place." This means that the Creator is not part of the timeline, He is above it. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow exist before Him as one instant. To Him, nothing is a surprise. Nothing is too soon or too late. Everything is exactly where it should be. Now think about it. If God inhabits eternity and decides to create time, then time is not just a measurement. It is a tool, a specific environment within something much greater. It is as if eternity were the true stage and time was merely the backdrop to a scene that prepares for something beyond our comprehension. And perhaps this is one of the greatest spiritual secrets hidden in creation. Time does not define God. It is God who defines time. This reversal of mindset takes control out of our hands and puts it back in the hands of the one who sees the end from the beginning. This also explains why we so often feel like we are behind or wasting time, when in fact we are just stuck in our own limited vision. The impact of God's decisions does not follow human timelines, and when we understand that He acts outside of time, anxiety fades. Comparisons no longer make sense, Because there is no divine clock ticking against you, there is an eternal purpose waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this place where God dwells, eternity, is not just a distant and inaccessible space. There are moments when, even here within time, we are touched by this eternity. Those seconds when something happens and we feel that it has gone beyond words, beyond what can be measured. It could be during a prayer, a sudden silence, a transformative encounter. It is as if the veil were torn for an instant, and the presence of the eternal invaded our now. This is not symbolic, it is spiritual, and understanding this possibility completely changes the way we face each phase of our journey. If God did not begin, if He simply is, then the creation of time was not a beginning for Him, but an invitation for us to exist within a narrative with a beginning, middle, and end, a story with stages, pauses, twists, and turns. And all of this has a purpose: to reveal to us, little by little, something that, outside of time, would be impossible to absorb, as if eternity were too powerful to be given all at once, and time were the most compassionate path to lead us to it. Leave a comment. Have you ever experienced a moment that seemed to have no place in time? Something that was so profound that it made you feel like there was something more behind that experience? If time is a creation and not an eternal constant, then we need to completely change the way we see everything around us. Because just as God created light, space, and matter, He also created time. And that means it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, just like a well-written story. But contrary to what many people think, time did not emerge as a neutral setting where things simply happen. It was designed with intention. It carries layers of meaning that most people don't even imagine. Time is a spiritual field where decisions are manifested, where purposes take shape, and where revelations unfold little by little at the exact pace that the soul can handle. Many Christian scholars claim that time is like a river that flows from God and returns to Him. Modern physicists, such as Stephen Hawking, have said that time has a definite starting point, and that before that point, known laws simply do not apply. This only reinforces what the Bible said long before science. Time is not eternal. It was ignited by a higher will, and if it was created, the most disturbing question is, why? Why did God, who lives outside of time, decide to establish this flow of past, present, and future? What did He want to reveal with this journey? Perhaps the answer lies in the fact that time gives us the chance to understand, experience, and decide. Within eternity, everything would be too absolute, too immediate. Time, on the other hand, allows for process, transformation, and maturation. It gives us the backdrop behind great changes. Without time, there would be no waiting that strengthens, no memory that teaches, no hope that points to what is yet to come. Time is in fact a gift in disguise, an interval granted between chaos and light, where everything can be rebuilt. And yet, most people live fighting with time, as if it were an enemy, as if every second were a burden. But when we understand that it does not control us, that it is in fact part of a greater plan, our mindset changes. What seemed like a delay turns out to be protection. What seemed like an end becomes a beginning. And what seemed like silence becomes preparation. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because if time was created, it means that God was somewhere before it existed, and not a physical place, but a state of consciousness, a dimension inaccessible to the human senses. This place, or rather this reality outside of time, may contain truths that explain not only the beginning, but also the reason why we are here. Leave a comment. Have you ever had the feeling that something that seemed to take a long time was actually being carefully prepared to happen at the right time? If it's already fascinating to imagine that time was created for a purpose, now think about the impact of the first words God spoke within this newly created scenario. Let there be light. At first glance, it seems like just the activation of physical light, like turning on the switch of the universe. But was that really all there was? The Bible doesn't waste words. Each expression carries layers, and what many don't realize is that even before the creation of the sun, moon, or stars, this light had already been declared. So, what was this light? Spiritual tradition, and even some Christian scholars point out that "let there be light" may be much more than a matter of physics or illumination. John 1:1-5 gives us an important clue when it says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Note the connection. Beginning, Word, light. The light that appears in Genesis may well be a manifestation of Christ himself, the Logos, the active Word, who gives order to what was chaotic. It is a spiritual revelation, disguised as a cosmic description. Let there be light would then be the moment when the presence of the Word breaks the silence of eternity and establishes not only the beginning of creation, but also the model for transformation, from darkness to consciousness, from confusion to direction. This light can be understood as an organizing force, something that not only illuminates but reveals, that separates the darkness and initiates order. Think of it as a change of state. The chaos that was still submissive to nothingness begins to receive purpose. The abyss, until then just a stage, is now the stage for a divine movement. What was once just potential begins to manifest itself, and all this with a single word. This shows us how much divine speech carries creation, and more, that light, in this sense, also has to do with identity, with the revelation of meaning, with clarity about what is about to happen. It's as if that first command was also a mirror for everything that would come later, because whenever God is going to start something, he first releases light, not just so that we can see the path, but so that reality itself begins to reorganize itself in light of the purpose. This applies to the creation of the universe and to your own story. How many times, before a great turning point, has something inside you first been ignited? An intuition, a hidden truth that came to light, a clarity that broke through doubts. This is the light that precedes movement. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because if light comes before form, before matter, and even before visible existence, then we are talking about a type of primary energy, a spiritual language that precedes everything, something that is perhaps still present, acting behind the scenes of reality, waiting for the exact moment to manifest itself again. Leave a comment. What do you think this light really represents? A physical energy, a spiritual presence, or something we still can't name? If "let there be light" marked the beginning of order, then what existed before that was something completely different, a state of existence dominated by chaos, darkness, and the unknown. The Bible describes this moment with a stark image: darkness upon the face of the deep. It is not simply the absence of light, but a reality charged with symbolic depth. The term deep evokes a sense of something endless, an immense and impenetrable void. It is almost as if the universe were in suspension, like a blank canvas covered in mist, waiting for a command to begin revealing itself. Some theological schools suggest that this abyss was not only a physical space, but also a spiritual one, the scene of an invisible battle that predated the creation of the earth as we know it, a war that may have involved forces that defied divine order and were ultimately cast out of the original light. This idea connects to passages later in the Bible that speak of the fall of Lucifer, the heavenly rebellion, and the rise of evil. If all this happened before "let there be light," it is possible that the abyss mentioned in Genesis already bore the marks of this conflict. As if darkness were more than darkness, it was also a consequence. This perspective changes the way we read the beginning of creation. Rather than being the absolute point of everything, Genesis may be revealing to us the moment when God decided to reorganize what was already in disorder. Creation, in this sense, would be a response, an act of restoration. This does not diminish the greatness of the creative act. On the contrary, it becomes even more powerful when seen as a conscious decision to restore balance, to impose limits on chaos, to transform the dark scenario into a fertile environment for life. And perhaps that is why the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. He was not absent, nor reacting with surprise. He was there, present, observing, silently dominating the environment until the right moment to intervene arrived. This is a portrait of a God who does not shy away from chaos, but enters it with authority. And this has profound implications for our own journey, because many of us also face internal abysses, dark, confusing places where there seems to be no form or direction. And if the pattern of creation still repeats itself, then perhaps these moments also precede a let there be light in our lives. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because if there was darkness, chaos, and a hidden war before the divine order, then creation was not just a beginning, it was a spiritual stand. A cosmic declaration that light doesn't just illuminate, it conquers. Leave a comment. When you look at this abyss described in Genesis, what does it represent to you? The beginning of everything, or a territory that already carried ancient and untold stories? If the abyss was real and darkness had weight, then light was not just a creation, it was a response, a spiritual stance in the face of chaos. But what if this logic still repeated itself today, not just in the physical universe but within our own personal reality? Because when we understand that time is a project, not a coincidence, we begin to see our pauses, our silences, and even our delays from a different perspective. Maybe what you are experiencing now, this confusing phase, this interval in which nothing seems to move, is not disorder. Maybe it is preparation. Maybe you are exactly at the point before let there be light in your story. There is something profound in the way God deals with time. He is not in a hurry. He does not improvise. He builds in silence, and often it is in this silence that true movement occurs. But on our side, this process can be distressing. We look around and see no signs. We look to the sky and hear no answers. And in this emptiness, doubts arise. Has God forgotten? Is there something wrong with me? But when we go back to the origin and see that before the light there was an abyss, and yet God was there, hovering, we understand that silence is not absence. It is invisible presence. It is part of the journey. That is why time, when viewed with this mindset, ceases to be a waiting period and becomes a veil, a space between what has not yet manifested and what has already been decreed behind the scenes in the spirit. And in that interval, God works with precision, sometimes by shaping situations, other times by preparing your heart. Because it is not always the world around you that needs to change. Sometimes it is your perception that needs to be transformed. The hidden truth is that many miracles do not begin with something new appearing, but with something old being revealed in a different way. Time, then, is not an enemy. It is an invitation, a path that trains us to receive what is already determined. And when you open yourself to see things this way, you begin to notice signs, a conversation that wakes you up, a dream that repeats itself, a feeling that something is being stitched together behind the scenes. And all of this points to a God who continues to do exactly what he did in the beginning, creating light where there was only darkness, bringing form to what was meaningless. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because perhaps time not only reveals, but also protects. Perhaps the reason certain things haven't happened yet is not because you're not ready, but because the environment around you still needs to adjust to the impact of what's coming. Leave a comment. In what area of your life do you feel you may be living the before there is light? If time has a starting point, then it also has a point of return. And this idea, as abstract as it may seem, may be the key to understanding everything that is happening right now, not only in the world around us, but also within us. Because if time was created as a line between eternity and creation, then perhaps we are closer to the end of that line than we realize. The Bible does not describe time as something infinite, but as something that fulfills a mission. It begins with a let there be light, but does it end with a new kind of revelation? A new rupture between the visible and the invisible? There is a silent spiritual logic that runs through the entire biblical narrative, a cycle hidden between the lines: beginning, fall, redemption, and then return. A return to the origin, but not as repetition, but as restoration. And if time was the path that led us here, perhaps now it is narrowing to take us back to eternity, only transformed. No longer as creatures trapped in the cycle of chaos, but as children conscious of purpose. The end of time is not destruction, it is transition. And like all spiritual transition, it begins with a quiet awakening, an inner discomfort, a sense that something profound is changing even though everything seems the same. This would explain why so many people are feeling a different kind of tiredness, an unnamed urgency, an increasingly intense search for meaning. Because when the timeline begins to close, the spirit begins to remember that which is beyond time. And this process is not just collective, it is individual. Each of us, to some extent, is being called to look within and realize, am I prepared to leave time and return to eternity? Is the way I spend my days, my thoughts, my choices, aligned with something greater than routine? Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because if the origin of time holds secrets about the end, then perhaps everything we were shown in the beginning is also a map, a coded script that points to the final impact of this journey, not just the return of Christ as an event, but the return of consciousness to its source, a cycle that not only ends, but completes everything that began with the phrase, "Let there be light." Leave a comment. When you hear this idea that time might be closing in, does it scare you or awaken you to something that you feel has been trying to emerge within you for a long time? If you've made it this far, it's because this conversation made sense to you on some deeper level, and that shows that you're not looking for quick answers. You're on a journey of revelation, just like me. That's why I invite you to subscribe to the channel, not as an automatic gesture, but as a conscious step to continue exploring together these mysteries that many people prefer to ignore. Here, each video is a piece that fits into the puzzle, and having you on this journey makes all the difference. If this message really reached you, leave a comment with the phrase, "I want to see before there is light," just so I know that you stayed until the end and that this exchange got where it needed to. And of course, if at any point in this video you felt that something was lit up inside you, click the like button. It's not about the number. It's about the connection we built here in this time that we dedicated to something bigger than ourselves. There is a video here on the side that complements this subject. Click and continue with me there. There are more revelations waiting for you.